Greetings! I'm sorry it's been such a long time since I've uploaded anything to my channel, but being unproductive and lazy takes up most of my time. However, I wanted to take a break from my lethargic haze in order to discuss a topic that I find important. This is not going to be an easy topic to discuss. I expect many of you have emotional investment in this topic because of its effect on you or someone that you care about. It has done untold damage to countless victims, and as such, I feel it my duty to address it. I am, of course, referring to the Canadian educational system. Canadians, your incessant, inexplicable desire to be nice is of detriment to future generations, and it is my plea to you that you change course. The latest example of Canada's pathological politeness is that of a teaching assistant who was reprimanded after covering taboo subjects in an effort to foster critical thinking skills. What was the taboo subject being discussed? Well, in staying with the stereotype, it'll be of no surprise to anyone that Canada is once again upset about pronouns.
Why that might have been seen as problematic by some of the students, maybe even threatening.
I find shielding adult students from unpopular or even dangerous ideas problematic. If an idea is dangerous, it is of benefit to everyone that people understand why it is dangerous. And the only way for people to understand why any particular idea is dangerous is if it gets examined. How can I evaluate the merit of an idea that is not allowed to be expressed to me? Or maybe you think otherwise. Maybe there is no merit to an individual exploring the value of an idea for themselves. Rather, that idea's value has already been explored by qualified professionals, and I need only to accept or reject whatever ideas they instruct me to accept or reject. In which case, we do not need or desire an educated populace, we need a compliant populace. What is Canada better off with? Learning institutions or re-education camps? Because you're straddling the middle ground.
I don't see how someone would rationally think it was threatening. I could see how it might challenge their existing ideas, but for me, that's the spirit of the university, is challenging ideas that you already have.
Assuming for a moment that the purpose of a university is, in fact, to learn, you should not go into a university expecting to come out of it knowing exactly what you know now. That would mean you hadn't learned anything. Even if you leave the university with the exact same positions that you went into it with, you should at least have a greater understanding of why you hold the positions you do. How else, other than testing and challenging your ideas, do you know that you understand them? How do you know that the ideas you have are the ideas worth having?
So the thing is about this is, if you're presenting something like this, you have to think about the kind of teaching climate that you're creating.
If the teaching climate being created is not one that challenges the students, it is not one that is effective at teaching. And
this is actually, these arguments are counter to the Canadian Human Rights Code. Ever since, and I know that you talked about C-16, ever since this passed, it is discriminatory to be targeting someone due to their gender identity or gender expression.
Arguments presented for educational purposes and with the intent of being examined are not discriminatory. They are not depriving anyone of anything. They are not denying anyone anything. They are not even going so far as to pass judgment on a person. They are, at most, unpleasant positions.
No.
I introduced it critically.
How so? Like
I said, it was in the spirit of debate.
Okay, in the spirit of the debate is slightly different than being like, okay, this is like a problematic idea that we want to unpack.
But that's taking sides.
Yes.
Like, it's taking sides for me to be like, oh, look at this guy. Like, everything that comes out of his mouth is BS, but we're gonna watch anyway.
Okay.
Unbiased debate, even for educational purposes, is problematic and ultimately pointless because the government has already approved the correct outcome. Don't trust people who encourage you not to exercise your mind. Either they're not thinking, or they'd rather you not be thinking.
So I understand the position that you're coming from and your positionality, but the reality is that it has created a toxic climate for some of the students.
The reality is, you are creating an environment that dissuades the exploration of uncomfortable ideas. That is a reality toxic to those that would rather be learning critical thinking. Critical thinking should not be condemnable at learning institutions.
Can I mention the gendered violence, gendered and sexual violence policy?
Yeah, please.
So under that, gendered violence doesn't just include sexual violence, but it also includes targeting folks based on gender. So that includes transphobia, biphobia, homophobia. All those sorts of things are protected under the policy, and so those are things that Laurier has upheld as values as well as the Ontario Human Rights Code. And so those are things that we're responsible for not impacting our students in that way, and not spreading transphobia in that way.
Dissecting, examining, and understanding bigoted ideas is not the same as spreading bigotry. The person who understands bigotry is in the best position to combat it. As bigotry becomes more taboo, fewer people become interested in truly understanding it. And as people understand it less, they start lumping in more banalities under it, thus exacerbating the size of bigotry as a problem, inflating its relevance and making it even more taboo. Political correctness is an ever-expanding black hole of ignorance.
Okay, so what I have a problem with is I didn't target anybody. Who did I target?
Trans folks.
How? By telling them ideas that are really out there? By telling them that? By telling them? Really?
It's not just telling them in legitimizing this as a valid perspective, as this is another valid perspective.
In a university, all perspectives are valid.
I don't agree with Lindsay that all perspectives are valid. Rather, my position is that even invalid perspectives can be useful if we understand why they are invalid. However, we can't even begin to assess the validity of a position if it's not allowed to be investigated.
So I don't get why I'm being seen as transphobic by virtue, by proxy of me just saying, just stating, just exposing people to an idea. I don't get how that label is not attached to me. I really don't.
It's more about the effect rather than the intention. It's that, like, obviously that wasn't your intention, but nevertheless, it disturbed and upset students enough.
So everything's about those students who are disturbed. Everything is catered to them. So by proxy of me showing you the video, I'm transphobic and I caused harm and violence. So be it. I can't do anything to control that.
Okay, so that's not something that you have an issue with? The fact that that happened? Like,
I mean,
I
know in my heart, and I know I expressed to the class that I'm not transphobic. And if any of them, I don't know, again, I don't know what they said, but I don't think I gave away any kind of political position of mine. I remained very neutral. And
that's kind of the problem.
Whether or not you are a bigot is not determined by your thoughts or actions, but rather the interpretation of your thoughts and actions by members of minority groups. You are not responsible for what you say or do. You are responsible for how others react to what you say or do. Your intent is inconsequential. Your words mean whatever others determine your words to mean. That's why tweets can get you arrested. Why jokes carry with them potential jail time. Do you think this an effective strategy? Are you prepared for the consequences of employing it? No, you're not. Not if you choose not to understand. Also, don't fuck children.